You're looking for the best laptop for writers, and there's a lot of options out there. And listen, I get it. I'm in the same boat. My writing's been increasing a lot lately. I'm starting to write my first book, and carrying around my gaming laptop, that Lenovo Legion 7i. It's a beast, but it's big. It's just not working that well. So figured there has to be a better option out there, right? And that's what we're going to look at today. So let's get to it. Yo, what up YouTube? Crash Wilcox, and today we are going to be trying to figure out what's the best laptop for writers. There's thousands of laptops out there that can kind of fit this bill, so we're going to have to narrow it down somehow. And to do that, I have really 4 criteria that we're going to be looking at. And I will just mention before we get rolling in this video completely, that it's not sponsored in any way. Obviously, you can look down at my subscriber count and you realize it's not sponsored. But you can help that, however, if you would be so kind as to drop a subscribe, drop a like if you find this useful or enjoyable. And also, as we roll through these options, and if you have experience with them or you agree or disagree, please feel free to leave that in the comments. I love to engage with you guys, learn something new. I've used most of these laptops, I think, except for a few. So if you have experience with these, that would be greatly appreciated. I'm sure the people that are interested in buying these laptops would like that as well. And then the last thing here is Intel's 12th gen is sort of just beginning to roll out, as well as AMD's 6000 series CPUs. They're just beginning to roll out. None of those are included in this video today. And that's sort of by design, because this video is more budget focused, right? When you're looking for a writer's laptop, you don't need a lot of super high-end specs. And we may revisit this later in the year when the 12th and the 6000 series, really gets available to everybody. But if you're budget focused, not buying the newest tech is probably the best way to save some money. And 11th gen 5000 series CPUs, they're going to be awesome for a couple of years now. So you don't have to be, tricked into thinking you need the latest and greatest. So the 4 criteria that we're going to be using to sort of decide what laptop is king, right, of the writer's laptops is first price, second power, third picture, and the 4th is portability. I tried to be really clever and make these all like the 4 Ps. So what I mean by price, number 1, unless you've got buckets of ducats and more money than you know what to do with, if that's the case, go buy yourself an M1 Pro, preferably a 14-inch in my book, spec it out to your heart's desire. That's the best laptop. But for the rest of the world that lives on a budget, we're going to be trying to stick around $1,000. That's going to be sort of the goal here. And this is MSRP pricing. So, with taxes, Uncle Sam's cut, this may bump into the $1,000 range, but that's going to be our goal. And I think we do have one laptop in here that is over $1,000, but I think it's such a good deal that it's worth throwing in here. So the second one that we're talking about is power. And when I'm talking about power here, we're looking at battery and charging, and we're going to be placing a premium on chargers. If you've got proprietary chargers or big power bricks, that's going to be a huge detriment to what we select here. My Lenovo Legion 7i, like I talked about, awesome, tons of power. It had a 300 watt power brick with a proprietary plug. It's kind of a pain, right? The third one here for picture, and with this, we're going to be talking mostly about screen size and brightness. So for screen size, we're going to be looking at 13 to 14 inch really is going to be kind of where we're living. 16 by 10 is acceptable for screen or for aspect ratio, but 3 by 2 is ideal. We want more of that vertical real estate because we're writing. 16 by 9, nothing wrong with it, but not ideal. And I do think we have one 16 by 9 laptop in here just because I think it's worth noting. And then the last one, portability here, we're talking about size and weight. So we're going to have 7 contenders really that I'm running through. They're not in any real particular order. I may make note throughout here which one I think would be my second choice. But then we'll be ending with sort of the mystery 8th laptop that I would say is king in my eyes. So first up here, you can't do any sort of talking about a productivity laptop and Apple's not the first thing out of your mouth. So that's what we're going to be looking at here. And when you're talking about meeting our 4 Ps with that price, that puts you in MacBook Air territory here. So that's what we got right here. The MacBook Air, $999. So it's right there at that cap. And what you get for this $999 is a 50 watt hour battery, USB-C charging, a 16:10 aspect ratio, 400-ish nits of brightness, 13:3 or 13.3 inch screen, and 2.8 pounds. So really good laptop. Looking at the M1 MacBook Air, what are the pros? Obviously the M1, super powerful CPU for the, thermal envelope that it lives in, the power that's required. It's really revolutionary. And this laptop in particular runs very cool and quiet. It doesn't even have a fan, so it is quiet. It doesn't make any sound. So that's a huge pro, because the last thing you want when you're trying to get in the flow of writing is some jet fan going off, in your face. The second pro is kind of a con as well, right? And it's with every Apple computer. It's Mac OS. If you love it, you love it. If you don't, you don't. For me, I'm impartial. Doesn't make a difference either way. I like it. I don't love it. So that's that. And then the last pro is the keyboard and the trackpad. When you're talking about writing for any length of time, keyboard's pretty important. And the MacBook keyboard is pretty widely, beloved. That doesn't mean you'll like it, right? I mean, keyboards are pretty individualized. Just because most people seem to like something doesn't mean you have to like it. For instance, Star Wars is for tweeners. I said it. I don't care, and I'm not backing off from it. They're not great movies. Luke kissed his sister. So that's the same way with the Magic Keyboard here, right? If you like it, cool. If you don't, whatever. The cons on this, so we already mentioned Mac OS can be a con. The other cons, it really comes in the vein of upgradability. This has a 256 gig hard drive with 8 gigs of memory, 8 gigs of RAM. You can't upgrade any of it. And it also only has 2 ports, the 2 Thunderbolt 4 ports, I believe. Yeah, 2 Thunderbolt 4 ports. So you're going to be living that dongle life. So if you're okay with that, then you're okay with it. If you're not, you're not. But that's ultimately those cons kind of put it in the camp where it's a good laptop. And that's with all of these. You can't go wrong with any of them. It's really just your preference. But for me, those cons, the upgradability, the dongle life, not really my thing here. So the next laptop that we got here, and this is our 16:9, and this is the Dell XPS 13. When we're talking about the Dell, when you talk about productivity laptops, high-end sort of laptops, it's MacBook and it's Dell XPS on the Windows side. So I wanted to throw it in here. And this one's actually a little bit cheaper than when I looked it up before. It's sitting right now at about $849, which is pretty nice. About $150 less than that MacBook. And what you get for that is 52 watt hour battery. It's USB-C charging. It's a 16:9 aspect, like I talked about, 450 nits of brightness, 13:3 aspect ratio, and it's 2.6 pounds. So a little bit lighter, a little bit brighter. Battery's not going to last as long, and I believe it just has also the 2 Thunderbolt 4 ports on it. Not sure we can see those. Yeah, right here. Oh, come on. Yeah, the 2 Thunderbolt 4 ports is all you're going to be getting. So perfectly fine laptop, keyboard. Yeah, we'll dive into the pros here. So for the pro, build quality is as good as it gets in a Windows laptop. Screen is wonderful, very bright. Picture is, very impressive. And then the keyboard is widely considered to be the best really for Windows laptops, right up there competing with Apple. But then the cons on this one, like we talked about with the Apple computer, the RAM is limited, 8 gigs. Hard drive is 256 gigs. And I believe on this, you can upgrade the hard drive. So you can buy an extra hard drive to replace that, which is nice. But now you're adding an extra cost. So that's something to consider. The RAM is soldered. And then also the aspect ratio. Like we said, it's 16:9, not the end of the world, but it is a con. So moving on here, the next laptop that we're going to look at is the Surface Laptop 4. There's a lot of laptops in the Surface lineup, but I think if you're writing, this is the option I would go with. 13.5 inches. So for the price here, we picked, again, you can see there's a lot of different options here. And I think this is the only AMD option on our list. It's the Ryzen 5 4680U. And this comes with a 47 watt hour battery. It does have its own proprietary connector, which stinks. It's 3:2 aspect ratio, which is wonderful. 400 nits of brightness, 13.5 inches, and it is 2.8 pounds. So yeah, that, they've got newer ones, the Surface Studio, but those get a little bit heavier. I think this one makes a lot of sense. And for the pros on the Surface Laptop 4, it's an AMD option. So if that means anything to you, then there you go. It is Zen 2, so that's sort of a con as well. But again, still plenty of speed. You get a lot of extra cores here compared to some of the Intel offerings. And again, with the AMD model, it's going to run a little bit cooler, a little bit quieter than its Intel counterpart. Trackpad and keyboard are wonderful on the Surface laptops. They always are, and this laptop is no different. I've used the Surface Laptop 4, loved it. Really good laptop. Build quality, much like the first two, is amazing. It's wonderfully built, solid as a rock, looks beautiful. Now the screen doesn't look that beautiful, those thick bezels, but you get used to it. It is touchscreen, so that's a plus. The other laptops that we've seen so far aren't touchscreens. XPS has a touchscreen option. It's more expensive, so you get the touchscreen here. And then that aspect ratio is ideal. 3:2 is the king of writers' aspect ratios. The cons here, upgradability again is kind of a bummer. You can't really upgrade it. The RAM is soldered. The SSD, from what I've seen, it can technically be upgraded, though it's a huge pain. And if something goes wrong, you're basically busting your warranty with Microsoft. So you can, unless you're very tech savvy, I wouldn't even try it. And then the last con is that proprietary charging cable is kind of a downer. And the AMD model doesn't have Thunderbolt, it just has USB-C. So those are some cons, pretty big cons, but all in all, it is a really nice experience to use the laptop. Keyboard, trackpad are very good. The next one that we got here is the Razer Book. So normally Razer, right, they're considered the, premium gaming laptop experience, but they do have a productivity laptop, and it's the Razer Book. And this model right here comes in at $999, so it squeaks in under that $1,000 threshold. Its battery is a 55 watt hour battery. It's USB-C charging, 16:10 aspect ratio, 500 nits of brightness. It's 13.4 inch screen, and it's 2.95 pounds. So it's the heaviest laptop we've looked at so far, but it also got the brightest screen. It looks like it has the best I/O. You can see it's got micro SD here. It's got HDMI. Let's see if I can see another side here. It looks like it's got USB-A. Looks like that's Thunderbolt maybe. Let's see what it says down here. Yeah, USB Type A. It's got Thunderbolt with power delivery, HDMI, micro SD. So that's really good. And sort of the pros on this laptop, obviously I think as far as looks go, this one looks really nice. I had a Mercury White Blade 15, beautiful. I'll get to the cons on what I didn't like about my laptop here in just a second. But the pro here, much like the other ones that we've seen, the build quality is fantastic. You know, these all aluminum body Razer laptops are fantastic. And that screen, 16 by 10, 500 nits of brightness, it's bright and beautiful. No problems with that screen there. The cons here, RAM is soldered, I do believe, and the SSD, I believe it has one SSD slot that is upgradable, but what you get for $999 is 8 gigs of RAM and a 256 gig SSD. That's kind of a bummer. And this does come with the Intel's 11th gen. I haven't really been mentioning the CPUs too much because here's why. They're all fast enough. You're talking about a writing laptop. You don't need tons of cores. You just need good single core performance, right? You're opening up a few documents. You want it to open quickly, run efficiently. 11th gen Intel will, and really, I mean, for God's sakes, anything 10th gen. So I haven't really been mentioning the CPUs too much because they're all good enough. That's kind of the point here. But yeah, there you go. 11th gen Intel, the AMD on the Microsoft Surface, the Dell XPS had a i5 as well, 11th gen, and then obviously the Apple had the M1. So for cons here, not terribly upgradable, which can be a bummer. You know, you talk about you can upgrade SSDs, but that's adding increased cost. And then the last con, and this is just personal for me because this is a really nice laptop. I don't like Razer keyboards. Didn't like it on my Blade 15. I can't imagine typing for long sessions would be terribly enjoyable for me. So that's a big con here. The next one that we got is the Acer Swift 3. I don't know who even knew this laptop existed, but I like it. The big reason why here, that first P is price, $799. So this is the cheapest model we've looked at by a substantial margin so far. And for that $799, you get a 65 watt hour battery. It does have a barrel plug connector, so sort of a proprietary connector, but I do believe it also offers USB-C charging, so you don't need the barrel plug. It's 3:2 aspect ratio, which is awesome. And 400 nits of brightness, 13.5 inch screen, and it's 2.6 pounds. So this is the lightest model we've seen with the biggest screen. It's got that perfect aspect ratio, and the I/O on here is pretty good. You got USB Type-C, Thunderbolt, like it says, USB charging. So not too bad there. It's got HDMI on it, which is pretty good. So I do think that this is a great choice for especially the more budget conscious among us. And I don't say that derogatorily. You know, at no point should anyone watching this go into any sort of debt to buy one of these laptops. So if this is the one that you can afford, I think it's a good option for you. You know, unless obviously like your livelihood depends on it and this is how you make your living, well, then you're probably not watching this anyways because you know what you need. But yeah, I think $799 for this is really good. So for the pros, lightweight, it's the lightest weight laptop that we've looked at so far, which is great for portability, right? If you're going to be carrying this around, typing with it on your lap, it's the lightest one. Yeah, it's just a couple of, 0.2 of a pound, but that's a difference. The Acer keyboard is nice. I've used, I didn't use this, but I've had an Acer Predator, and I really like the Acer laptop keyboard. It types well. I think it's kind of unheralded, but I like it personally. Again, that's a personal preference, but I would take the Acer keyboard over the Razer keyboard. Again, 3:2 aspect ratio is ideal, and this has it. As for the negatives, and there's not many, I mean, I would say build quality to this point this is going to be the worst build quality we've seen. It's not bad. It's just not as good as the Razers and the Dells and the MacBooks. RAM and SSD. Again, I believe this has one upgradable SSD slot, and that's it. So again, you're adding in cost, but now, you might be able to supplement that and still stay under $1,000, which is nice. And then the last one is just that barrel plug. Yeah, you don't need to use it, but it's proprietary, and that's one of the negatives. So not a lot of negatives here. If this was maybe $1,000, you might have some more negatives, but for $800, 3x2 aspect ratio, bright, nice keyboard, lightweight, it ticks a lot of the boxes. So this is a good option if you're, well into that budget conscious camp. The next one that we got here, we are going to take a look at the LG Gram. This is the 14-inch. This one is actually $200 off currently from when I looked at it last. So this might be a pretty good option for you. We'll see. $800 right now. And what you get for that $800 is a 72 watt hour battery, USB-C charging. You get a 16:10 aspect ratio, around 350 nits of brightness. It was actually kind of hard for me to find information on the brightness there. 14-inch screen and 2.2 pounds. So ultra lightweight. And you can see here, it's got some pretty nice IO, 2 USB-A. It's got a micro SD. Looks like 2 Thunderbolt 4 HDMI. So really good IO on this. It is only rocking an i3. Again, still good enough for a writing laptop, not a big deal, in my opinion. So what are the pros on this? Incredibly lightweight. 2.2 pounds is nuts how light that is. It does also come with an additional M.2 slot. So this model currently comes with 8 gigs of RAM and a 256 gig SSD. Those aren't great, but you can just add in your own SSD. And the benefit of that is you don't have to swap your operating system, which can kind of be a pain. So that's really nice. And then the last one is that port selection is really good on this. Maybe the best port selection we've seen so far. So that's really good. One of the cons, I guess, it's bigger than it should be for how light it is. It's actually misleadingly big, I guess. The RAM is soldered, can't be upgraded. That's a bummer. And then the screen just isn't as bright as some of the others. Again, it was a little bit difficult to find info on that, so that can kind of be a bummer. And then this is probably in the ballpark of that Ryzen 5 on the Surface laptop as far as CPU performance. This might be slightly better as far as single core performance. So that's something to consider. And when I looked at this before, it was $999. I'm like, this is an option, but it wouldn't be great for me. But for $800, this is a pretty nice looking laptop. And I've never used an LG, but that keyboard, the trackpad look like they're nice sized, super lightweight. So definitely an option to consider here if that sale sort of continues on. But the next one that we'll take a look at here, HP Envy. And this is the one that is slightly over $1,000. It's $1,099, but I wanted to include it here because first off, I've used an Envy, love the HP Envy. Wonderful laptop. Keyboard is awesome. I'll stop drooling over it and get to the specs here before we get to the pros. 66 watt hour battery, USB-C charging. It does have a proprietary barrel plug, I believe. Maybe it's on the other side here, but it does offer USB-C charging, which is nice. 16:10 aspect ratio. It's 14 inches, 400 nits of brightness, and it's a 3.06 pounds. So it's the heaviest we've seen so far, but that will play into some of the pros actually. So this model is the i7 11398. So really strong 4-core CPU. It'll have some really good single core performance, which again is what we're looking for here. But best keyboard and laptop, my favorite keyboard and laptop keyboard that I've used on a Windows PC is on the HP Envy. Loved it. It was a wonder to type on. And then the build quality and the aesthetics of the laptop are great. It looks awesome. Screen looks great. The whole build, in my opinion, just looks really nice. But then also, this model comes with a RTX 3050. So this has a dedicated GPU. If that means something to you, if you're going to be doing some sort of video editing maybe on the side or play some games on the side, this can handle it better than any of the laptops we've looked at thus far. So for a little over $1,000, you can get an RTX 3050 packaged in with this, beautiful HP Envy. Not too shabby there. This would probably be my second choice if I was deciding on a laptop today. Some of the cons, you are in a sense paying for stuff that you don't necessarily need, right? You don't need a dedicated GPU here. It's nice, but you don't need it for writing. So do you want to pay that extra money? Whereas you could maybe get that Acer Swift 3 for $300 less because you don't need the GPU. The SSD and the RAM, I thought was a con. It is not. 16 gigs of RAM and 512 gigs of storage is awesome. That is awesome. That is awesome. But it is heavier than your other options and a little bit bulkier than your other options. So carrying it around, I didn't mind it when I had my Envy, but it is a thing. So that brings us finally to our king, in my opinion, of laptops for writers. And that is the Framework laptop. I don't know if you guys even saw this coming, but to me, this is the laptop that I would choose. And in fact, I did choose the DIY edition. So what you get in here, you can see down here, $982. It's a 55 watt hour battery, USB-C connector, 400 nits of brightness on the screen, 13.5 inch screen size, 2.8 pounds. But it is a fully customizable down to the motherboard. So this is literally a laptop that will never get outdated. So the keyboard, from what I haven't used it, so I actually ordered a Framework laptop for myself. This wasn't just me spouting off about what I would pick. I did pick this. Unfortunately, it got hung up in shipping, got stuck overseas. So as weeks, days turned into weeks, I had to cancel my order. And it was a bit of a bummer, but I hear the keyboard is great. The screen it's a 2K screen. So it's like 1440p in a sense, or 2560 by 1600, whatever that works out to be, for 3x2. I don't even know what that works out to be. But completely customizable. So you can get 16 gigs of RAM, a 500 gig SSD that you can pick what you want. If you want to spend a little bit more to get a Gen 4 SSD, this is a Gen 3. But also you can configure your I/O, which is cool. So I just threw on here micro SD, USB-C, USB-A, and an HDMI. And that's the laptop. As you can see from the pictures, you can replace everything on it, keyboard, display, when that comes out. So what are the pros of this laptop? Again, completely upgradable, entirely unique. The only laptop here that we see this as an option. It comes with 16 gigs of RAM, which is great. The HP Envy did that as well, but it was $100 more. Port selection is whatever you want it to be. So that's awesome too. And then aspect ratio is ideal with the 3x2. The only con really to this laptop is, will Framework's promise remain? Are they going to close up shop because nobody's buying their product? Because if that happens, then you don't got an upgradable laptop. But if the promise remains and they can stay in business year after year, then all you got to do is maybe every couple years buy a new motherboard with a new CPU, you know, maybe Ryzen 6000 down the line, slide that in, you got a brand new computer. Replace the keyboard after a time if you need to, brand new computer. So that's really good. So that's the laptops that I think and what I would ultimately choose. Again, I told you about why I don't actually have my framework laptop. But if you stick with the channel here, hit that notification bell, I'll be coming back in a few days or a week with the next video, and I'm gonna walk you through what I ultimately did get because my framework didn't show up. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Please let me know in the comments what you think, what you like, what you disagree with. I wanna hear all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I hope you found this useful. There will be links to all these laptops down in the show notes. If you happen to use one of those links, some of them will probably be Amazon affiliate links. That helps support the channel and be very grateful if you would use those. But otherwise, get to writing.